So you're looking forward to crossing this bridge?
Guess so. Looks interesting.
We are Terry and Cindy O'Keefe. We've been camping together for more than 40 years, and we invite you to join us in a 12-episode adventure as we explore the Yukon and Alaska.
Raven.
He's saying goodbye, Cindy.
Leaving Dawson City, we crossed the Yukon River aboard the George Black Ferry. It's a free ferry operated by the Yukon government. Once on the other side, the top of the world highway begins, headed for the northernmost border crossing in North America.
A little bit of snow up here. The top of the world highway was a relatively wide and well-maintained gravel road that generally runs across the peaks of the mountains rather than through the valleys. That is incredible. For much of the drive, you're above the tree line, and the views are spectacular. Hope we might see the caribou herd or some of them that live in these parts. But I have to tell you, I mean, this is unbelievably beautiful up here. There's mountains in every direction. The border itself is just behind me there, those little green buildings. And it's remarkably beautiful. We stopped at a large pullout about a mile before the border, hoping to spend the night, but the wind was blowing so hard that day and making it feel really cold that instead we just made it a lunch stop and then headed for the border. Now, we'd heard a few horror stories from other travelers, whether crossing into Canada or Alaska, of having a tough time at the border. But we had the absolute nicest border agent that we've ever encountered in all our travels. He obviously checked our passports and specifically asked if we had any firearms or firewood. And we then had a really great chat about living in Alaska and what it was like working at such a remote border crossing.
And he did give us a bit of a warning that the Taylor Highway, which is the next stretch of highway in the US, would become a little bit rough after the short section of paved road. And boy, was he right.
The section of the Taylor Highway between the border and Chicken was narrow and very rough in places, with winding sections and hairpin turns. For one section of the drive, the milepost has notes that say caution, 1,000-foot drop-offs, no guardrails, soft shoulders. If towing, watch where back wheels of towed vehicle are on any tight turns. We encountered one turn where we intentionally swung very wide because that was absolutely true.
Okay, yeah.
Wow. We were very fortunate that this section of road was not busy at all. And I think the one time that we actually met another RV coming the other way, the other driver simply stopped and allowed us to get by very slowly. It is a drive that is going to take 2 to 3 times longer than Google Maps tells you it's going to. I think we averaged about 20 miles an hour between the border and Chicken. But it was worth it. The top of the world highway was a highlight, and it brought us to Chicken for a fun first night in Alaska.
Chicken is a tiny gold mining town with 2 large RV parks and a downtown that consists of a cafe, saloon, and gift store. We stayed at the Chicken Gold Camp with its large chicken statue and signpost, and there's a gold dredge you can arrange a tour of.
We had dinner at the Chicken Creek Cafe that night, and I will say the bison chili was really good. We then popped into the Mercantile Emporium for a little souvenir shopping, and then into the saloon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So why is it called Chicken?
You ask me the tough questions. Well, the original settlers of this little town wanted to call it ptarmigan, which became the state bird of Alaska. But they figured nobody could spell ptarmigan because it starts with a P, so they decided on the name chicken instead. The next morning found us heading south on the Taylor Highway, and it's in much better shape south of Chicken, towards the Alaska Highway. And that is where our tire pressure monitoring system for the trailer went berserk. Well, maybe it didn't sound quite like that, but you get the idea. We actually don't have any video of it because we were dealing with what we thought at the time was a bit of an emergency. We immediately stopped, took a manual gauge, checked the trailer tires, and they were absolutely fine. But the alarm continued, and it was the high temperature one that was worrying us the most. So we drove very slowly for the last 10 miles into Tok. And in Tok, we stopped at Willard's RV Repair. They couldn't have been more helpful. They took us in, took the tire off the trailer, and discovered that the rough roads we'd been driving had dislodged the pressure monitoring sensor, and it was just bouncing around inside the tire. They reattached the sensor and had us back on the road in less than 2 hours. I think our trailer is in desperate need of a wash after the trip up here.
After a quick lunch, we did some shopping at the Tok Three Bears grocery store, and then we checked into the Sourdough campground where we gave our rig a badly needed bath.
You ready to go to work? Oh yeah, you'd like to, I know. We then enjoyed a fun evening with some of the other campers participating in the campground's nightly pancake toss.
All right, they're ready. Ready. Bucket.
Winners get a free breakfast in the campground's restaurant, which was really tasty, and everybody gets their picture taken. When you reach Tok, most people have to decide if you want to continue west on the Alcan towards Fairbanks, or go south on the Tok cutoff towards the Glen Allen area and Valdez.
Because we wanted to see Denali in late August with the fall colors, we headed south.
The Tok cutoff is a paved road. It was in pretty good condition with just a few frost heaves and potholes. And as you approach the Glen Allen area, the Wrangell Mountains come into view. After a quick stop at Glen Allen, we headed for the Ranch House Lodge RV park. It's a very well-kept park, and it was a really relaxing evening. Ranger, Chitina. The next morning we backtracked a little bit to Glen Allen and then headed south towards Chitina and Wrangell View Campground. This was going to be our base for exploring the McCarthy-Kennecott area.
We had heard stories about how bad the McCarthy Road was, but because we were going to be gone all day, we couldn't leave Ranger. So we tried to find out if any of the shuttle buses would take dogs, but we couldn't confirm it, so we did take the truck. McCarthy Road, limited vehicle services, drive at your own risk. Watch out for loose railroad spikes.
Alrighty, here we go. The rugged McCarthy Road winds into the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park and Preserve. The 60-mile road is built over an old railway bed and provides awe-inspiring views like the Tusculana Bridge. So you're looking forward to crossing this bridge?
Guess so. Looks interesting.
Girl, that's the spirit. Originally a train bridge that was built in 1910, it's now converted to a single-lane vehicle bridge that's 238 feet above the Tusculana River Gorge. That was an incredibly beautiful drive across the bridge and a little bit scary.
Yeah, but beautiful.
There's also wildlife, mountains, and teeth-chattering washboard roads. Truthfully, that was the absolute roughest road we drove on during our entire trip. To go the 60 miles took 2.5 hours. At one point, we even stopped and let some of the air out of the truck tires to see if that would help soften the ride. It made a little bit of a difference, but not that much.
Let's hope the truck is okay for the rest of the trip.
But look at that glacier behind you. Did that make it worth it? But eventually we made it to McCarthy. There is a paid parking area, and for those who are brave enough to bring their RV, or if you're just bringing a tent, there's spots to set up. Right at the parking lot is a footbridge that will take you across the Kennecott River to a small shuttle bus that will take you into the town of McCarthy or onto the Kennecott Mine.
We headed to town first and had a nice breakfast at the potato restaurant, and then we hopped a shuttle to the mine site.
So this is Kennecott Copper Mines. Started operating in 1911, if you can believe it. 1,500 feet down they dug. And it sits right at the bottom. That's it right there of the Root Glacier. And until very recently there was no roads. They built a railroad here, 65 miles.
It was fascinating walking around the site and visiting the buildings. We didn't press on to hike the Root Glacier, but we did enjoy an amazing lunch from the food truck at the mine site.
So we stopped back into the village of McCarthy to walk around a bit more, and we actually ran into the driver of the bus that comes in from Glen Allen, and he told us that yes, dogs are allowed on the bus, so we could have brought Ranger, and he also had a tip for us for driving on those rough roads. He said that we should speed up. He said driving at 40 miles per hour was going to make things a lot smoother, and it actually really seemed to help. Now, we're not suggesting that that's what you should do, but our drive back was much more enjoyable, though we also did see 3 other vehicles on the way back, all with flat tires. So just a couple of final thoughts. While there were some sections of the Taylor Highway that seemed not very well maintained and a little bit dicey, it's what gets you to the top of the World Highway, and that was absolutely beautiful, and we would do that trip again in a heartbeat. And if we were returning to McCarthy Kennecott, we would definitely leave our truck at the campground and have the shuttle bus stop and pick us up so that we didn't have to expose our poor pickup to that abuse again. If you found this information helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe, and that way you'll be alerted when our next episode comes out, Visiting Valdez.